Welcome to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. I'm Dave Burke. Big day at Paul Brown Stadium. Dave Lapham was there enjoying all the sunshine and all the fans getting back into the stadium for the first time. And Dave, we got to start with, probably one of the biggest things, and we've talked with Darren Simmons multiple times, recently had him on In the Trenches about the strength of Evan McPherson's leg, and he showed it off today.
Did he ever, Dave? I mean, it was a beautiful day down there. Over 28,000 fans, 28,200 and change showed up for it. My feeling is that Joe Burrow had been part of the festivities. It might have been double that. They distributed 70,000 tickets and ended up with 28,000 people that did attend. And I do think that the absence to Joe Burrow was a factor there. But it was a heck of a crowd. It was a heck of a day. And Evan McPherson just treated them to something I've never seen before. I've never seen a field goal made from 65 yards out. Now, there was no rush. I mean, they had the field goal team, the field goal rush team, but it wasn't live, but the operation, as always, was perfect. Perfect snap, hold from Kevin Huber, snap from Clark Harris, hold from Kevin Huber, and Evan McPherson crushed it. And the thing about it that's so impressive, not only was it 65 yards in length, but you'd think that you'd have to hit a 3-iron to get it there, a low trajectory line drive shot. He was still hit a 9-iron. The thing had immediate elevation. No way in heck it would have ever been blocked, and it cleared from 65 yards out by a couple of yards or so. And after practice, I was talking to him, asked him, where do you think you could have hit from today under these conditions? He said 70 yards was a possibility, and that's just, whew. I mean, you're lining up in the other team's side of midfield when you're kicking from that kind of distance. It's unbelievable, even with the 10 yards of the end zone. It's just incredible the distances this guy is kicking from. And let's remember, in the playoffs, he went 14 for 14. And 3 of his field goals were from 52, 54, and 54 yards. 3 of those 14 makes. And during the course of the year, he had 5 game winners at the gun. Boom. I mean, you talk about clutch. You talk about a talented leg. And Dan Horton and I were commentating on the practice, and we were talking live during the field goal portion of it as well as other portions. And when he hit the thing, I said, if he makes this, he's bionic. And he made it. And I said, he's got a bionic hip and leg. It's just unbelievable, the leg strength that this kid has and the whip that he has in that leg. I mean, he generates so much speed and power. But that was how practice ended. Other really good things happened during the entire workout. It was well done at Paul Brown Stadium, on the turf. During the course of the day, special teams got addressed for a couple of 10-minute periods. So the practice went for about 2 hours, maybe give or take a few minutes. 20 minutes of the 2 hours was devoted to the punt return team in 2 different segments. 10 minutes at the early stage was basically the first block of practice after the team stretch was punt return. And then in the 10th block of practice, they go back to special teams punt return for another 10 minutes. So about an hour apart, 2:30 and 3:30. They hit special teams, the punt return part of it, 2 different times. Darren Simmons is an attention to detail special teams coach. He's an assistant head coach as well as special teams coordinator. He's been doing it for over 2 decades now with the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 decades of excellence. And it was just well done all day long in terms of special teams. A big day for Darren Simmons and his kicking game for sure. As I said, this is a ramp-up stage of training camp. It was the 4th practice without pads, full pads. They do wear the foam rubber shoulder pads, which are very, very light, very, very small. They're just protecting the shoulder and the clavicle area in case there is contact. You're not going to have a major injury there. On the helmets, this was collectively bargained. The offensive, defensive linemen, linebackers, tight ends, they were wearing these big foam bubbles on top of the helmets. There's been some research done that this dissipates contact and helps reduce concussion issues. So all those interior people in the field of play are wearing these big bubbles on their helmets, and it'll be for the first couple of preseason games at every practice. So that's an interesting addition to what goes on at practice on a daily basis. The ramp-up stage, the 4 practices without pads, was collectively bargained by the Players Association and Management Council, so it's mandated by the National Football League. Every team has to do it. There's no full contact, live contact as such. But this is the last day of that. They have tomorrow off, and on Monday they'll start wearing shoulder pads. So during the course of this workout today, they had worked on situational football. They always pick out a couple of situations that they want to focus during the course of the practice. They always have 11-on-11 team. Number ones working against number ones, number one offense against number one defense, number twos against twos. They have that portion of it, but in the other periods of practice, they're working on a special phase. And this one was third down. Today was third down day. They had a big period of 7-on-7, third down, running routes, making sure that the route combinations are proper, coverage techniques are proper, and trying to slow it down and stop it. And then the other phase that they really hit was red zone, and in particular, low red zone. And that's where the defense shown today. Low red zone, which is inside the 10-yard line. Red zone is inside the 20. Low red zone inside the 10-yard line. Offense never ran a play that scored a touchdown. Defensively, every single snap, and there were 10 snaps that were executed. Every single snap, the defense made a stop. Now, not to say that they didn't advance closer to the goal line, but never did make it into the end zone on any one of the individual plays. So defensively, they did a pretty darn good job in the low red zone. And defensively, these young rookie defensive backs that they drafted, their speed is showing up. I mean, these guys can close on a football. The overall team speed, in my eye today, was very, very effective. They had pressure off the edge from Hendrickson, Hubbard and company. They had push in the middle from their defensive tackles. They had a significant pass rush. They had quarterbacks running for their lives back there, getting out of pocket, trying to extend and create plays. And they did a nice job of leveraging receivers on the back end. The secondary had a very, very strong day. Linebackers did a good job of covering the intermediate depth routes. I mean, it was just overall a very, very good defensive performance. And when you look at it, that was the key to their success in the playoffs. In the playoffs, they had 7 different players come up with 8 interceptions in 4 games, 9 total takeaways, and the offense only gave it up twice. So they were +7 in the turnover department. I mean, it's all about the football. There's no question about it. And in the playoffs, they just ratcheted it up because during the regular season, they were dead even. They had 21 takeaways and 21 giveaways, dead even in the NFL, 16th in the league. But boy, once the playoffs came around, they really stepped it up a notch. Joe Burrow obviously was not part of the festivities whatsoever today, and I think one thing that they want to make sure with Joe Burrow, he has not even shown up out on the field, even as a participant or a spectator, I should say, not a participant. I think that's going to be down the road. I do think a couple of things that they're going to be thinking about. First and foremost, I think they're being very careful to make sure there's no infection. The one thing you don't want to do is have a successful surgery and then try to do things too soon and have an issue and come up with an infection. So they want to make sure that they're free and clear of that. The other thing is, when you think about throwing a football, you're torquing, that mid-core, the core area of your body, pretty darn strong. So you have to be pretty far along in terms of the healing that goes on. I mean, let's face it, they cut an organ out of his body. They cut the appendix out. So, that has to heal. And so did the 3, even though it was like a scope procedure, there are 3 holes that were stitched up, and those have to heal. So if you're torquing your core pretty hard throwing a football, you got to make sure that everything's copacetic and everything's going to hold up. So I really don't anticipate seeing Joe Burrow even next week. I'd be surprised if he's doing anything out there physically next week. Now, I think he might be down there and maybe in meetings and out there getting mental reps and things of that nature potentially for maybe portions of the practice, and maybe not the whole thing. But I do think that he's going to be fine. He's going to work his way back. There's no reason to rush him. No reason to rush him right now. And the one thing about him, he is a quick healer. And number two, when he does come back, he gets back in a rhythm very, very quickly with his receivers. I mean, he really does find that rhythm much faster than the average Joe, no pun intended, at the quarterback position. This guy is unique and special that way. The Bengals did avoid a couple of big injury scenarios. Yesterday's practice, at the very end of the practice yesterday, Jeffrey Gunter, the 7th-round pick, twisted his left knee pretty good, it looks like. And they called practice a little bit early. They didn't even end up doing their special teams portion of practice. They cleared the field, and he limped off the football field. Well, it turned out that it wasn't as bad as they thought. He was taped up and had a little bit of treatment. He was out there running around doing his thing at the practice today, and involved in quite a few of the snaps. And then Mike Thomas, there are two Mike Thomases. We're talking about the Mike Thomas, the wide receiver. He ended up having a collision, which was, totally accidental. It wasn't, it was Mike Hilton, and he just kind of got tangled up a little bit. And Mike Thomas get run over, and basically he ran up on the back of Mike Hilton ran up on the back of his leg and bruised that Achilles a little bit. And there was I asked either guy, I said, you didn't hear any kind of a pop or anything, did you? No, nothing like that. So he was kind of a little bit gimpy and trying to walk it off and wondering if he was going to participate today. Well, he did. So they dodged a couple of bullets from the injury department yesterday, which was good. The only, major injury that they've had is the injury to the running back Holyfield, which was very unfortunate. And he's got an ACL that needs to be surgically repaired. He's out for the year. Some guys I think that are having pretty darn good training camps. We talked about Kwame Lassiter. I'm still impressed with him. I do think that he's not going to necessarily run away from you, but he is a precise route runner. I'm going to go old school on everybody. Fred Biletnikoff, this guy played receiver for the Raiders, and he wasn't going to win any 100-meter races, but this guy was a route runner extraordinaire, and he could sink his hips and get in and out of cuts and create separation, and he had a very long and successful career. Dax Hill's speed is showing up at the safety position. There is no question about that whatsoever. Cam Taylor-Britt, also another one that runs sub 4.4. His speed is showing up. These guys run 4.38s, 4.36s. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, and that defense is playing pretty well. Travion Williams, running back, I think has had a pretty strong camp. He's gotten off to a good start, having a very strong camp. There's a cornerback that kind of caught my eye, Delonte Hood. This kid is about 6 feet tall, over 190 pounds. He's out of Penn State. Got some long arms. I'm telling you, he's an interesting guy to watch. I'm going to keep my eye on Hood. He's impressed me at this stage of a training camp. There's no two ways about it. There's a linebacker, a rookie linebacker from Texas San Antonio. This kid named Clarence Hicks. He's got some athleticism, and he's twitchy now. I mean, this kid has got some twitchiness. He's explosive, kind of like what that kid is showing out there a little bit. Hakeem Davis Gaither looks like he's back to me. He's running around pretty well. We already talked about Ben Brown, Cordell Volson. Those guys are showing themselves well, I think, in the offensive line. There's a big old tackle, 6'7" tackle out of Georgia Tech named Cochran. He's got some length to his arms as well. He's showing that he belongs. I mean, these are a lot of guys that are having more than decent camps. And to start things off, there is no question about it. Hayden Hurst is going to be a mismatch weapon. Hayden Hurst, I think, is going to be something that people are going to be impressed with, particularly when they're in that three receiver set with the three wideouts the Bengals have, and then all of a sudden the tight end is almost an afterthought. I think Hayden Hurst is going to make the tight end be more than an afterthought. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Zach Carter, the rookie defensive lineman out of Florida that they've got in that three technique, I think he's showing himself a little bit. And then another guy, Tisdale, this big free agent, 6'5", 285-pound edge rush guy out of Mississippi, an undrafted guy. He's another one that's got some athletic twitchiness to him. So I mean, there are a lot of guys that are going to be battling for roster spots that are showing themselves and showing that they belong at an NFL training camp. There is no two ways about it. In summation, Dave, when I look back at the Bengals roster a year ago and look at the roster now at this stage of training camp, this roster is better. This is a better football team than what the Bengals had a year ago at this time, particularly up front in the offensive line. And the offensive line is starting to come together. And obviously, the big factor that has to take place is when will Collins start practicing be able to practice on a regular basis. And I think that's going to be probably a couple of weeks down the road, but he's getting better and better. He had that inflammation around a disc. He's had that problem before. He knows how to deal with it. You don't want to have, numbness down your leg. You don't have all those kind of issues that can crop up from an injury like that. So I do think that this football team is a much better football team than the one that they had training camp last year at this point in time. Now, is that to say that they'll do what the football team did last year? And Dave, I'll tell you, I was looking back down the stretch of games as the season wound down, and it really is quite remarkable when you looked at what did take place down the stretch. I mean, this football team, they lose two in a row at home. They get embarrassed by the Chargers at home, and then they lose a very, very tough game in overtime to the 49ers. They lose both those games at Paul Brown Stadium to go 7-6, and it's the middle of December now. And they're a 7-6 football team at that point in time. Now, Joe Burrow played exceptionally well against the 49ers. He threw 2 touchdown passes with no interceptions. They go to Denver and beat Denver. They beat Baltimore and Kansas City and Cincinnati. They win 3 in a row after losing that overtime game to San Francisco. At that point, now they're 10-6 and they're division champs, winning that Kansas City game. In that stretch, San Francisco, Denver, Baltimore, Kansas City, Joe Burrow, 11 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Take away the loss to the 49ers, Denver, Baltimore, Kansas City, 9 touchdown passes, no interceptions. And then in the postseason, 5 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. So we're talking about 16 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. It's all about the ball. It's all about taking care of the football. We already talked about how the Bengals had 7 different guys accumulate 8 interceptions. Joe Burrow wasn't throwing any. Joe Burrow threw 2 interceptions, compared to 16 touchdown passes in the stretch that was important for the Cincinnati Bengals down the conclusion of the regular season and into the playoffs. So it is all about ball security and all about taking it away from the opposition. That's what's going to win you football games at any level. It's that turnover ratio, that turnover differential, and the Bengals proved it when the season was on the line. There was no two ways about it, Dave.
Dave, we a year ago when we were talking about camp a year ago, and you, as you said, you take it 12 months later, when this camp ends and cut downs happen, I think there's going to be some names let go that will surprise fans of players who contributed to that success a season ago because of the depth they've brought in through free agency and this past draft.
No, there's no question. There's going to be good football players that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have to let go. There are no two ways about it, and that's that's part of the process as you improve as a football team. And we talk a lot about the culture and the high character of the football team, the players, and I continue to marvel at it, Dave. You go through this 4 days in a row now, gone through the locker room, and it is a joy to be in there. I mean, these guys are have each other's backs. They are just, it is one big family. It's an unbelievable culture that is a very, very high character scenario, and it starts with the coaching staff. We talked about this before. Head coach Zach Taylor all three of his coordinators, including the special teams coordinator, Darren Simmons, Brian Callahan, Lou Anarumo, those three coordinators, and Darren obviously being assistant head coach as well, they've all been together. This is the fourth year. That's a rarity to have that kind of consistency and continuity, and that helps. That's a key component of formulating the culture and the character, because they're all high character people as well, and it all starts filtering down, and then it gets into the player ranks, and they've done a darn good job of, doing the research and the character evaluations of players that they've drafted and signed as free agents. And we talk a lot about how many of them are captains, two-time captains, and Tyson Anderson's a three-time captain at Toledo. And that's crazy when you think about a sophomore being elected captain of his defensive football team by his teammates. I mean, it says a lot about what's going on, and they're going to be letting go not only good football players but good people. So hopefully a lot of them find other opportunities to continue their professional football career, whether it be like we've talked about, in the NFL, the USFL, the XFL, whatever it is. Hopefully they continue to have an opportunity to extend their professional careers.
Yeah, I go back. I have ultimate respect for Zach Taylor when he got hired by Tommy Tuberville, a name that a lot of people in Cincinnati don't like to hear. But the one thing covering UC when I did, and he hired Zach Taylor, Tommy Tuberville told me, he's like, Dave, I'm telling you right now, this is one of the bright young minds in the game. He's going to be a successful head coach. Now, I don't know if Tuberville was thinking at the college level as compared to the pro level, but he's showing what he's bringing to the table. And that's not just, as you said, not just the X's and O's. It's what goes on in that locker room. And that is such a huge, huge deal, especially when you're dealing with grown men, how you treat them, and guys who are being paid a lot of money. Excellent take on Zach Taylor. Dave, before I let you go, I know you got a busy evening planned ahead. I got to ask you, two names we talk about a lot, Ken Anderson, Ken Riley, both are senior semifinalists for the 2023 class of the Hall of Fame. Your thoughts on getting more Bengals into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, a quick comment about not only Zach Taylor establishing the character and the culture, but Duke Tobin and all of his guys doing what they do, evaluating, free agents in the National Football League, and also evaluating this college talent, and then trusting, Zach Taylor once it's all put together, Zach Taylor to basically develop it, and it's definitely been an organizational effort. There is no question about it. As far as Ken Anderson and Kenny Riley, 12 finalists. My understanding is they've upped it to 3. 3 of the 12 finalists will be named. And boy, you just hope that these guys are going to get their opportunity. There are guys though like Chuck Howley, for example, is on that list, and I think he was a 7-time Pro Bowler, and he's the only player to be named MVP of the Super Bowl from the losing team. It was had such an impressive game when the Dallas Cowboys lost the Super Bowl that they were in. So, every team has their guy that they're pushing for. The Bengals have 2. So 2 out of the 12. You would think that that's a 1 in 6 chance that one of them is going to get there. You'd love to see both of them get there, but I think that's kind of maybe highly unrealistic when you talk about keeping other worthy people off of from other organizations out of the Hall of Fame. These voters, these selectors are getting pressured by every franchise in the league to do the thing that needs to be done, and they all deserve to be in. Ken Anderson and Ken Riley definitely deserve to be in. Kenny Riley with his 65 interceptions. When he got out of the game, he was second all the time interception leader when he retired, and he's still in the top 5. Kenny Anderson, as I said more than once, 4 passing titles. I'm not just talking about passing yards. He led the National Football League in passing yards a couple of times, but 4 passing titles, which is the formula they came up with that basically computes everything. Touchdowns to interceptions, yards per attempt. I mean, it's very intricate, and it comes up with a passing leader. And he's done it 4 times, and the only quarterback to do it in 2 different decades. twice in the 70s, twice in the 80s, back to back in 2 different decades. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what more these guys have to do. I know it's a tough process. I know there's pressure involved with it, but you got 2 Cincinnati Bengals. One of them has to get in. This is the year. One of them must get in. Anthony Munoz, the only Cincinnati Bengal in the Hall of Fame. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous when you look at the history of the franchise and all the great players that have played here in Cincinnati. It really is.
He is Dave Lapham. You've been in the trenches. Be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also listen to what we do on In the Trenches wherever you get your podcast from. We always want to thank our great people at First Star Logistics for everything they do for us. And until next time, be sure to check out DL In the Trenches on Twitter to get the latest. Dave, thank you. Have a great evening.
You do the same, Dave.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Brakes? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
You know, gotta get that body right. That's right. Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.